Governor, you have to address this. Is the euro in danger from a Bitcoin standard?
The first poster child of tokenization is really stablecoins. You saw, as Brian observed, massive growth last year. I think, went from, in 2024, $19 trillion of transactions on stablecoins. Last year, in 2025, is $33 trillion, so about 75% growth. I think many in our industry would say that's going to continue. I think to the extent there's space between what Brian was just talking about and how I think about the Bitcoin idea of a Bitcoin standard, I look at that and I think it's much more of the marriage. Sovereignty of fiat currencies, I believe, is for many countries sacrosanct. Ben Bernanke spoke at a Ripple event many years ago, and he made the point that governments will roll tanks into the street before giving up monetary supply, giving up the control of monetary supply, which stuck with me as, yeah, that makes sense. And so at Ripple, we very much focus on building the bridges between traditional finance, as Bill was describing, what we now call TradFi, and decentralized finance, and that has meant working with a lot of the banks around the world to kind of build those bridges.
Governor, you have to address this. Is the euro in danger from a Bitcoin standard?
No, I'm a bit skeptical, Brian. Sorry to say it about this idea of the Bitcoin standard. We left the gold standard, but the gold was only a technical mean. What is important is what you say, Brad, that monetary policy and money is part of sovereignty. And we live in democracies, and I think the public role is key.
Element of trust, but there's also an element of momentum. We're seeing it in terms of the swing away to gold, which is now just a momentum trade as trust is eroded. Brad, do you want to come in on this and the element of trust?
Well, I certainly think momentum is a big part of this, and I think, frankly, I personally think the crypto environment, and stablecoins included, and even tokenization, momentum is so much on our side of that direction, and that's partly because you're seeing the U.S., the largest economy in the world, has been pretty openly hostile towards facets of crypto and blockchain technologies, and that has shifted dramatically, starting with the White House, but certainly, the work that the industry based in the U.S. has come together and helped elect a much more pro-crypto, pro-innovation Congress, and you're seeing that play out. So I think momentum is a big part of this, and continuing to make sure that we're playing into that in a nice way, but also demonstrating real results. Because, look, if this is just hype, I think part of the tokenization topic, the main topic today, part of that is we shouldn't tokenize everything just to tokenize something. There has to be a positive outcome of efficiency or transparency or, some of the root benefits of being tokenized. Otherwise, it's just okay, it's a nice science experiment.
I'm surprised no one's throwing democratization of the market to me. And that's typically the argument when we have some sort of innovative approach to an asset class. Brad, come in on this, because you're the innovator in the room, but you also believe in regulation.
Yeah, I think what's going on in the U.S. right now it is a classic dynamic of when you create new law, it's never going to be perfect. And, I think what's the dynamic within the industry and working with Congress has been kind of, I subscribe to the idea that perfection is the enemy of good, and you can't get to perfection. And so I think Brian's exactly right. We're as close as we've ever been in providing that clarity. As some in the room probably know, Ripple lived through a 5-year battle with the U.S. government being sued because of the lack of clarity. So we are very much an advocate of clarity is better than chaos. I think Brian's right. We are very close. I don't know if we stalled.
What about the rewards side? Rewards, dividends, interest, is it necessary on stablecoins?
Ripple doesn't have as much of a dog in that fight as others in the industry, and so there's others that have stronger opinions. It doesn't directly affect Ripple's business as much. I agree in some ways that, look, competition is good, and I agree very much with the idea of level playing field. Now, I also think a level playing field goes two ways, in that crypto companies should be held to standards that banks are, and banks should be held to standards that crypto companies are in order to compete. So I don't think that's a one-way street, that somehow Team Crypto gets to have, a certain pass in some way.
Is that one for you?
Sure. I'll comment briefly. Not all layer 1 blockchains are created equal. Some use, as you're describing, proof of work. Some use proof of stake. Some use other consensus models. So I wouldn't uniformly put all of the kind of blockchain infrastructure in kind of one power lens, and so I don't think it's as big as a deal. And what you're seeing is most of the activity of stablecoins today is on more power-efficient blockchains, either use proof of stake or a consensus mechanism.
Just to add to that, proof of stake uses 99.9% less energy than proof of work,
right?
Which most of the tokenization is happening on Ethereum blockchain, which uses proof of stake.
Now, I'm going to touch on that. Does it provoke more speculation in asset classes, and where does it leave the average owner?
Well, you're choosing the word speculation. I subscribe to Brian Armstrong's comment earlier of like opening up investment access, and investment versus speculation. I put in kind of two different buckets. They both have a purpose, and they both have active market participants. But I think the opportunity around tokenization for certain verticals is, in fact, the democratization of access to investment, less so on the speculation side. I don't know enough about Trump's decision to make steps towards banning institutional investment in residential real estate to comment there. But
people think about our current financial system as kind of sacrosanct and it's the only way to do it. But if you study the history of money, really it's got created in like 1971 when Nixon went off the gold standard in the US, and we currently have the system where most central banks don't have any link to a hard commodity underneath. I think fiat currencies are going to continue to exist for a long time, but we're also seeing the birth of a new monetary system that I would call the Bitcoin standard instead of the gold standard. And in the crypto space, that is a return to sound money and something that is inflation resistant, because democracies around the world, once we came off the gold standard, are struggling to balance their budget. They're all running deficits, and it's caused inflation in fiat currencies. And so there is a real segment of the population that is looking for a new system based on hard money. Bitcoin doesn't have a money printer. The supply is fixed, and people will go to it in times of uncertainty, kind of like they did with gold.
Sorry to say that I trust more independent central banks with a democratic mandate than private issuers of Bitcoin, which have a very useful role. But
Bitcoin is a decentralized protocol. There's actually no issuer of it. So that's in the sense that central banks have independence. Bitcoin is even more independent. There's no country or company or individual who controls it in the world. And so anyway, I think it's a healthy competition because if people can decide which one they trust more, and I think it's actually the greatest accountability mechanism on deficit spending.